Welcome, today's story is full of drama. Like and subscribe to stay updated. Let's get started.
God must have a plan, though I can't begin to fathom what it might be. Right now, my world feels like it's fallen apart, and I have no idea how to put the pieces back together. After 24 years of marriage, I've discovered my wife's infidelity. The evidence is unmistakable. I'm standing here holding her damp, stained panties in my hand, and it's been over 10 days since we last shared any intimacy. You might wonder why I even have her panties. It all began earlier today. I work as a systems manager at a manufacturing plant, and my wife, Vanessa, is a buyer for a fashion boutique. She had just returned from a 2-day buying trip. Not long after lunch, my daughter, Mia, called, sounding concerned but not alarmed. "Dad, Mom's been in a car accident. She's shaken up, but it doesn't appear to be serious. We're at St. Eliza's Medical Center, and they want her to stay overnight for observation. Her car is damaged and was towed. Can you go to the Emerald Auto Yard and retrieve her things from the car? Her overnight bag and briefcase are still in there. You're sure your mother's okay? Can I talk to her?" I asked. "The doctor said you can visit later. They gave her a sedative and she's sleeping now. I've never seen Mom this upset after something like this before. They'll stay with her until she wakes up. Just make sure you get everything from her car." I was going to do it, but I don't want to leave her. "All right, they'll pick up her stuff and see her later. If she wakes up before I arrive, let her know I love her." I found it odd that Vanessa had called Mia instead of me. Nevertheless, I left work and headed to the auto yard where her car had been towed. The vehicle was in bad shape. It had been sideswiped, leaving the right front fender, wheel, and axle destroyed. The grille was crumpled, and the bumper hung loosely. Judging by the damage, I figured the car would likely be a total loss, given that it was already 5 years old. Vanessa's briefcase lay on the front floor while her overnight bag sat partially open on the back seat. As I picked up the bag to close it, a distinct, overpowering scent hit me. The unmistakable smell of sex in the heat of the sealed car. I felt like someone had punched me in the gut, and I had to fight back the urge to vomit. I opened the bag fully and saw the maroon-colored teddy I had given Vanessa for Christmas just 8 months ago. The matching panties were still damp. As I lifted them, a terrible realization struck me. It's always the little things, the unforeseen details, that expose those hidden betrayals. And in this case, that betrayal was my wife's unfaithfulness. How could I even begin to process this? I loved my wife deeply, and until now I believed she felt the same. For 24 years, I had been loyal, never once straying or even flirting with others out of respect for her. Vanessa was more outgoing, and though her occasional flirtations had bothered me in the past, I never imagined she crossed the line. I would have confidently bet my life that she had never cheated. But now, as I stood there holding undeniable proof in my hand, I knew the truth. I cleaned out the car and headed home. When I got there, I stored my wife's briefcase where she always kept it and took the now-closed overnight bag upstairs, putting it just inside the door. I went back downstairs and grabbed a beer from the fridge, cracking it open as I sat in the living room. My mind raced through all kinds of thoughts, including ways to get revenge. Then I thought of Mia. She and her mother were close. If I attacked Vanessa, I would be attacking Mia too, and I couldn't do that to my daughter. Could I still appear as the faithful and loving husband when I faced her in the hospital tonight? I thought I could. I could carry on until I decided what my best course of action was going to be. In one way, this was a license to do whatever I wanted. If I wanted to, I could pursue someone else too. There was Emily, the widow down the block, who was always friendly at neighborhood gatherings. And, of course, there was Brooke, who lived across the street. She was divorced and very friendly. Maybe I should find out who Vanessa was with and why. Did she not love me anymore? Was he richer, better looking, or more exciting? I thought I had given her everything she needed. The phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. "Hi, Daddy. Mom is awake. She wants to know if you got her briefcase and things. She says she has some important orders in there." "I have them," I replied. "I brought them home and put her briefcase where it belongs. Her overnight bag is upstairs. She's gonna need a new car out of this, I think. The car is likely totaled." "How's she feeling?" I heard Mia relaying everything to Vanessa in the background. "Mom is feeling better after her nap. She wants to come home, but they insist she stays overnight for observation. If you come in and tell her you love her, it'll mean a lot." I'll be there in a couple of hours. That'll give her a chance to eat. In the meantime, tell her I love her and I'm glad she wasn't hurt. Why wasn't I having this conversation directly with Vanessa instead of Mia? Was Vanessa trying to suppress her guilt by not talking to me until she had to? We'd see. The thought gave me confidence that I could face her without revealing what I knew. I called Evan Case, a private investigator. Evan and I had gone to school together. After college, I went into factory management and he went into law enforcement. He was injured in the line of duty and transitioned into private investigative work. I explained what I knew and what I wanted from him. We settled on a plan. I knew Vanessa wouldn't be going on another buying trip for 2 weeks, but I didn't want to miss anything in the meantime. Evan planned to monitor her phone and movements discreetly. With that settled and a cold sandwich under my belt, I headed for the hospital to face my wife. It was easier than I thought to face Vanessa at the hospital. I kissed her when I arrived, and I kissed Mia too. I could feel Vanessa watching me, searching for signs that I was acting differently. I inquired about her condition and told her how much I missed her during the 2 days she had been away. I hinted that nearly losing her in the accident had made me realize how precious she was to me. Her shoulders visibly relaxed at my words, and for a moment, I felt as though I had mastered my emotions. Maybe I should have pursued a career in acting. I stayed until visiting hours ended, sitting on the edge of her bed, holding her hand, and occasionally leaning down to kiss her. I even managed to cop a feel when Mia wasn't looking. Mia, at 22, had her own apartment now, which she shared with a roommate. As I was leaving the hospital, I assured Vanessa I'd be home getting some rest. She asked me not to unpack her overnight bag. The urgency in her voice was telling. When I got home, I went straight to bed, determined not to let my emotions get the better of me. But as I lay there in the dark, the reality of her betrayal kept playing over and over in my mind. The next morning, I picked Vanessa up from the hospital. Our neighbors, who had heard about the accident, crowded the house to welcome her back. Vanessa, ever the hostess, excused herself to wash her travel clothes. I knew what she was really doing, checking if I'd looked inside her bag. The thought amused me. That evening, we attended a barbecue at one of our neighbors' homes. Vanessa was in her element, flitting and flirting around the men, just enough to keep them engaged without provoking their wives. I watched her from a distance, my beer growing warm in my hand. Lila, the widow from down the block, noticed my mood and came to sit beside me. "You look like you could use a friend," she said quietly. For reasons I couldn't quite understand, I found myself confiding in her. "Vanessa is having an affair. I found out yesterday. It feels like I've been kicked in the stomach." Lila listened without interrupting, her hand resting lightly on mine. "That hurts, I know," she said after a moment. "Mark had an affair once, and it nearly crushed me. But he was so sorry, so willing to make amends, that I forgave him. We had 10 wonderful years together before he passed. Sometimes people make mistakes, but that doesn't mean they can't be fixed." Her words were a balm to my battered ego, though I wasn't ready to entertain forgiveness yet. Vanessa's betrayal was too fresh, too raw. Later that night, as we walked home from the party, Vanessa confronted me. "What were you and Lila talking about?" "She's lonely. We were just talking," I replied, my tone neutral. Vanessa's lips tightened. "You're my husband. You're supposed to fight for me, not sit in the shadows talking to other women." I stopped walking and turned to face her. "Fight for you? Why would I fight for someone who's already walked away from me?" Her face went pale, and she didn't say another word. When we got home, we went to bed without speaking. She turned away from me, and I did the same. The days passed in a tense, fragile truce. Vanessa tried to act normal, but I could see the cracks in her facade. Meanwhile, Evan kept me updated on his investigation. Vanessa's buying trips to nearby cities had become regular rendezvous with her lover. The evidence was damning, but I wasn't sure what to do with it. 2 weeks later, Vanessa left for another buying trip. This time, Evan followed her. He confirmed that she spent the night at a motel with her lover, a man named James. They were affectionate in public, careless in a way that suggested they thought they'd never be caught. The next morning, Evan called me. "Do you want me to confront them?" "No," I said. "Just get all the proof you can. Pictures, videos, whatever it takes. I need to know everything." When Vanessa returned home, I played the part of the clueless husband. But inside I was seething. I knew it was only a matter of time before the dam broke. The Saturday after Vanessa's return, I decided it was time to confront her. Mia was coming over for lunch, and I wanted to lay everything on the table, no matter how messy it would get. As we sat around the dining table, eating the light meal Vanessa had prepared, I cleared my throat. Mia, I began. I've asked you here today because this is something you deserve to know. It affects all of us. Vanessa's eyes flicked toward me, wary. She knew what was coming. Mia, your mother has been unfaithful, I said, my voice steady despite the chaos inside me. 4 years. She's been meeting someone during her buying trips. I've confirmed it. Mia's fork clattered to her plate. She stared at her mother, her face a mix of disbelief and betrayal. Mom, is this true? Vanessa didn't answer immediately. She looked at me with fury in her eyes. You had no right to involve Mia in this. I had every right, I said firmly. She's an adult, and this family's future affects her too. Mia turned back to her mother. Mom, say something. Is it true? Vanessa sighed, her shoulders slumping as though the weight of her secrets had finally crushed her. Yes, she admitted. It's true. Mia's face crumpled, tears spilling down her cheeks. How could you do this? Dad has been nothing but good to you. To us. Why? Vanessa's voice was cold now, defensive. It's complicated. You wouldn't understand. Try me. Mia shot back, her voice breaking. You owe us that much. Vanessa hesitated before speaking. It started years ago with someone I knew before I met your father. We reconnected, and one thing led to another. I never planned for it to continue, but it did. Mia's tears turned to anger. You broke up our family for what? For someone who didn't even have the decency to leave his wife for you? Was it worth it? Vanessa's face twisted with guilt and shame. It's over now. I ended it. Too little, too late, I said. You didn't end it because you wanted to. You ended it because you got caught. Vanessa glared at me but didn't argue. She knew I was right. Mia stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I can't be here right now. I need to think. She kissed me on the cheek, ignoring her mother entirely, and left without another word. The house felt suffocatingly quiet after Mia left. Vanessa and I sat in the living room, the weight of unspoken words pressing down on us. Do you hate me? She asked finally, her voice small and uncertain. I looked at her, the woman I had loved for over 2 decades. But I don't trust you either. And without trust, what's left? Tears filled her eyes, and she didn't try to wipe them away. I know I ruined everything. I don't even know why I did it. Maybe I was selfish, or maybe I just wanted to feel something different. I don't know. I'm seeing a lawyer on Monday, I said, my tone final. We need to figure out how to move forward. Separately. Vanessa nodded, her tears falling silently. I understand. The weeks that followed were a blur of paperwork and quiet conversations about dividing assets. We agreed to sell the house and split the proceeds, each of us finding a small apartment. Mia was supportive, though her relationship with her mother remained strained. The day we signed the divorce papers, Vanessa looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Liam, she said, her voice trembling. I know I've lost you, but I hope one day you'll find happiness again. You deserve it. I hope the same for you, I replied, and I meant it. Life after divorce was strange. The routines I'd taken for granted were gone, replaced by a quiet loneliness. But there was also a sense of freedom, a chance to rebuild my life on my terms. I threw myself into work, accepting a transfer to a new office in another state. The change of scenery helped, giving me space to heal and reflect. I began to find small joys in my new life, meeting new people, exploring new places, and learning how to be alone without being lonely. Mia visited often, her presence a reminder of the family we once were and the bond we still shared. Over time, her relationship with Vanessa improved, though it would never be the same. One evening, as I sat on the balcony of my new apartment, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. The wounds Vanessa had inflicted were still there, but they were no longer raw. They were scars now, reminders of a painful chapter that had finally come to an end. And for the first time in years, I felt ready to start the next one. Several months later, I found myself settling into a rhythm in my new city. Work was demanding but fulfilling, and I had started making connections with colleagues and neighbors. It was a slow process, but I began to feel like I belonged. Mia visited when she could, her optimism and energy a constant source of encouragement. She talked about her classes and the friends she was making, and I could see how much she was growing into her own person. Though Vanessa's betrayal still lingered between us, it no longer dominated our conversations. Mia had learned to compartmentalize, to love her mother despite the mistakes she had made. One weekend, Mia brought a friend with her, a bright and cheerful woman named Emma. She had a contagious laugh and a way of making everyone in the room feel at ease. Over dinner, she asked me questions about my life, my work, and my hobbies. It was refreshing to have someone take such an interest in me, and I found myself opening up more than I had in a long time. After Mia and Emma left, I couldn't stop thinking about her. Her laughter echoed in my mind, and I caught myself smiling at the memory. It was strange, feeling this kind of excitement again, but I didn't rush it. I let the thought of her simmer, unsure if I was ready to pursue anything serious. Around this time, I received a surprise email from Vanessa. It was short and to the point. Subject: an apology message. Liam, I know I have no right to ask for anything from you, but I want you to know how sorry I am for everything I put you through. I've started seeing a therapist and trying to understand why I made the choices I did. It doesn't excuse what I did, but I hope one day you can find it in your heart to forgive me. Take care. Vanessa. I stared at the screen for a long time, unsure of how to feel. Her words seemed genuine, but I knew they wouldn't change the past. Still, there was a small part of me that appreciated the effort. I didn't reply. Not yet. In the months that followed, I ran into Emma a few more times. She worked at a bookstore near my office, and I often stopped by to pick up a new novel or just to chat with her. Each conversation felt easy, natural, and I found myself looking forward to these encounters. One day, as I was leaving the store, she called after me. Liam, wait. I turned, surprised. What's up? She hesitated, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Would you like to grab coffee sometime? Outside of here. I smiled, feeling a warmth I hadn't felt in years. I'd like that. Our coffee date turned into dinner, which turned into a series of outings that felt less like dates and more like two old friends reconnecting. Emma was kind, understanding, and had a way of making me laugh even when I didn't think I could. She listened without judgment, and I found myself sharing parts of my life I hadn't shared with anyone else. As the months went by, our relationship deepened. Emma wasn't just someone I enjoyed spending time with. She became someone I trusted, someone who made me believe in the possibility of love again. One evening, as we walked along the beach, Emma took my hand. Liam, she said, her voice soft. I know your heart's been through a lot, and I don't want to rush you, but I need you to know that I care about you. A lot. I stopped walking, turning to face her. The ocean breeze tugged at her hair, and the sincerity in her eyes took my breath away. Emma, I said, I've been scared to let myself feel this way again, but being with you has shown me that it's possible to heal, to move forward. Care about you too, more than I thought I could. She smiled, and in that moment, the weight of the past felt lighter. The scars were still there, but they no longer defined me. Our relationship continued to grow, and eventually I introduced her to Mia. They hit it off immediately, their shared warmth and humor bridging any potential awkwardness. Mia pulled me aside after dinner one night and whispered, Dad, she's amazing. I'm so happy for you. Hearing those words from Mia solidified something I had been feeling for a while. Emma was the one. She wasn't a replacement for Vanessa. She was something entirely different. A new beginning. As my relationship with Emma blossomed, life seemed to find its rhythm again. Work kept me busy, and weekends were often spent exploring new places with Emma or having quiet dinners with Mia when she visited. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of balance, a sense of contentment I hadn't thought possible after everything that had happened. One Saturday, Emma and I decided to take a day trip to a nearby vineyard. The drive was picturesque, the rolling hills dotted with rows of vines stretching endlessly. We spent the day tasting wines, laughing, and enjoying the crisp autumn air. By the time the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, I knew I wanted to ask her something important. As we walked along the edge of the vineyard, the fading light casting a golden glow, I turned to her. Emma, can I ask you something? She stopped and looked at me, her expression curious but warm. Of course, Liam. What is it? I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small box. Her eyes widened, and she brought her hands to her mouth, already starting to tear up. "Emma?" I began, my voice steady despite the rapid beating of my heart. "You've brought so much joy into my life. You've shown me what it means to love and be loved again. I can't imagine my life without you. Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down her face as she nodded vigorously. "Yes, Liam, yes," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. I slipped the ring onto her finger, and she threw her arms around me, holding me tightly. In that moment, the world seemed to fall away, leaving only the two of us, surrounded by love and the promise of a future together. Planning the wedding was a whirlwind of excitement. Emma wanted something simple, a small ceremony with close friends and family. Mia was thrilled to help, diving into the details with the enthusiasm of someone planning her own wedding. Seeing her so happy only reinforced my decision to move forward with this new chapter of my life. I debated whether to invite Vanessa. Part of me felt it was the right thing to do for closure if nothing else. But after much thought, I decided against it. My life with Emma was a fresh start, untainted by the pain of the past, and I didn't want anything to overshadow our special day. The wedding day arrived, a sunny spring afternoon with just the right amount of breeze. The ceremony was held in a garden, the scent of blooming flowers filling the air. Mia walked Emma down the aisle, a symbolic gesture that brought tears to my eyes. Seeing my daughter so happy for me, so supportive, was more than I could have ever asked for. As Emma reached the altar, I took her hands in mine and whispered, "You look breathtaking." She smiled, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "And you look like the man I've always dreamed of." The ceremony was short but heartfelt, our vows filled with promises of love, support, and the courage to face life together. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, and I kissed Emma, it felt like the culmination of every moment of pain and healing, a declaration that life could indeed begin anew. In the months that followed, Emma and I settled into married life with ease. We traveled, hosted dinners, and spent quiet evenings at home. Mia visited often, her bond with Emma growing stronger with each visit. Seeing the two of them together, laughing and sharing stories, filled me with a sense of peace. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Emma rested her head on my shoulder. "Liam," she said softly, "do you ever think about how far we've come? How life has a way of surprising us?" I wrapped my arm around her, pulling her closer. "Every day, and I'm grateful for every twist and turn, because it brought me to you." She smiled, and we sat there in comfortable silence, the past behind us and the future stretched out like the endless horizon. Life after the wedding felt like a new chapter in every way. Emma and I spent our days building memories, the kind that only come when two people truly understand and value each other. I found myself rediscovering joys I had forgotten. Lazy Sunday mornings, impromptu road trips, and quiet evenings filled with laughter. Mia was thriving too. She completed her degree with flying colors and landed a job she was passionate about. Every time she called to update us on her life, I couldn't help but feel a swell of pride. Watching her navigate adulthood with such confidence and grace reminded me that, despite everything, I must have done something right. One evening, as Emma and I were cleaning up after dinner, the phone rang. It was Mia. "Dad," she said, her voice tinged with excitement. "I have some news." "What's up, sweetheart?" I asked, leaning against the counter with Emma listening curiously beside me. "I'm engaged," she announced, her voice bubbling with happiness. For a moment, I was speechless, the reality of my little girl growing up hitting me square in the chest. "That's incredible news, Mia. Congratulations. Who's the lucky guy?" She laughed. "His name's Alex. I've mentioned him a few times. You'll meet him soon, I promise." As we ended the call, Emma smiled at me. "You're going to be the father of the bride someday. How does that feel?" "Terrifying," I admitted with a chuckle. "But also wonderful. She deserves all the happiness in the world." Meeting Alex was a pleasant surprise. He was kind, grounded, and clearly adored Mia. Seeing the way he looked at her reminded me of how I felt about Emma, a quiet certainty that this was where he belonged. Over dinner, the four of us talked and laughed, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude that Mia had found someone who cherished her as much as I did. As their wedding approached, I found myself reflecting on the twists and turns that had brought us to this point. Life had tested me in ways I never expected, but it had also rewarded me in ways I could never have imagined. Standing at Mia's wedding, watching her exchange vows with Alex, I felt an overwhelming sense of pride and peace. In the years that followed, life settled into a rhythm. Emma and I grew older together, navigating life's ups and downs as a team. Mia and Alex welcomed their first child, a little girl they named Grace. Becoming a grandfather brought a new kind of joy, one that filled every corner of my heart. Grace became the center of our world. She had Mia's eyes and Alex's mischievous grin, and every visit was a reminder of the beauty and innocence of life. Watching Emma with Grace was a gift. Her patience, her warmth, her laughter. It was clear that Grace adored her Nana, and the bond they shared was something I cherished deeply. One summer evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Emma and I sat on the porch with Grace playing in the yard. Mia and Alex were inside, cleaning up after dinner, their laughter drifting out through the open windows. Emma reached for my hand, her fingers intertwining with mine. "Liam," she said softly, "are you happy?" I looked at her, at the woman who had brought light back into my life, and then at Grace, chasing fireflies with unbridled joy. "I am," I said, "more than I ever thought I could be." She smiled, her eyes glistening in the golden light. "Me too." And in that moment, surrounded by the people I loved, I knew that the journey, the heartache, the healing, the risks, had all been worth it. Life had come full circle, and for the first time in a long time, I felt whole. As the years went by, life took on a comforting rhythm. Emma and I celebrated every milestone together. Birthdays, anniversaries, holidays, with a deep appreciation for the moments we shared. Each passing year strengthened our bond, and we became not only partners but also each other's greatest confidants. Mia and Alex settled into their life as parents with ease. Grace grew up to be a vibrant and curious child, her laughter filling every room she entered. She often stayed with Emma and me during school breaks, and those times were nothing short of magical. We introduced her to the small joys in life, catching frogs by the creek, baking cookies from scratch, and learning how to ride a bike. Grace became the bridge between our past and future, reminding us of the simple beauty in life. One day, as Grace was drawing pictures at the kitchen table, she asked a question that caught me off guard. "Grandpa," she said, her big, curious eyes looking up at me, "did you and Nana always love each other?" Emma chuckled softly from across the room, her hands busy kneading dough for bread. I set down my newspaper and smiled at Grace. "Well," I began, "Nana and I found each other a little later in life. We both had some tough times before we met, but those times helped us realize how important it is to hold on to the good things when you find them." Grace tilted her head thoughtfully. "So you had to go through the bad stuff, and finding your grandpa was one of the best things that ever happened to me," she said, her eyes meeting mine with a warmth that never failed to take my breath away. As time passed, I began to notice the ways life changed around us. Grace grew older, and her visits became less frequent as school and extracurricular activities filled her schedule. Mia and Alex's careers flourished, and though they were busy, they always made time for family. It was during one of those visits, as we sat around the dinner table, that Mia made an announcement. "Dad, Emma," she said, her voice tinged with excitement, "Alex and I are thinking about moving closer to you." Emma's face lit up. "Really? That's wonderful news." Mia smiled. "We've been talking about it for a while. Grace loves spending time here, and we want her to grow up closer to family." The news filled me with a quiet joy. The idea of having Mia, Alex, and Grace nearby was more than I could have hoped for. It felt like the perfect culmination of everything Emma and I had worked so hard to build. A family rooted in love, support, and understanding. In the years that followed, our home became the heart of family gatherings. Summers were spent hosting barbecues in the backyard. Winters were filled with cozy nights by the fire, and every holiday was a reminder of how far we had come. One crisp autumn morning, as Emma and I walked hand in hand through the park, she stopped and looked at me. "Liam," she said, her voice soft, "do you ever think about how different life could have been?" I nodded. "Sometimes, but I don't dwell on it. Every choice, every challenge, it brought us here, and I wouldn't trade this for anything." She smiled, her eyes glistening with emotion. "Neither would I." As we continued our walk, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. Life had been a winding road, filled with unexpected turns. But it had led me to a place of love, fulfillment, and peace. And for that, I would always be thankful. As the years passed, life unfolded in ways that surprised and delighted me. The days of heartache and self-doubt became distant memories, replaced by an enduring sense of peace and gratitude for the family Emma and I had built together. Grace flourished, her curiosity and determination leading her to remarkable achievements. She excelled in school and developed a passion for art, often gifting us her paintings, which Emma and I proudly displayed in our home. Her teenage years were filled with laughter, challenges, and milestones that we were lucky enough to share. When Grace graduated from high school and later college, the entire family gathered to celebrate, our pride for her shining brighter than ever. One summer evening, as the family sat on the porch watching the sunset, Grace surprised us all with an announcement. "I've decided to take a job overseas," she said, her voice steady but tinged with excitement. "It's an art program in Paris, and I think it's the right step for me." The words hung in the air for a moment before Emma reached out and took Grace's hand. "That's incredible, sweetheart," she said with a warm smile. "You've always had the courage to follow your dreams." I nodded, though my heart ached at the thought of her being so far away. "We're so proud of you, Grace. Paris is lucky to have you." Over the following weeks, we helped her prepare for her journey. On the day she left, I hugged her tightly at the airport. "Remember," I said, my voice thick with emotion, "you always have a home here, no matter where life takes you." She smiled, her eyes glistening with tears. "I know, Grandpa. Thank you for everything." With Grace in Paris, life settled into a quieter rhythm. Emma and I found joy in small, everyday moments. Gardening, reading, and taking long walks. Mia and Alex visited often, and their presence kept the house lively. It was during one of those visits that Mia brought up a topic I hadn't expected. "Dad," she began, sitting across from me at the kitchen table, "have you ever thought about writing down your story?" I raised an eyebrow. "My story?" She nodded. "Everything you've been through, the lessons you've learned. I think it could help a lot of people." Emma, standing nearby, chimed in. "I think it's a wonderful idea. You've always had a way with words, Liam." I hesitated, the idea both intriguing and daunting. "I'll think about it," I said, and left it at that. Over the next few months, I found myself reflecting on the journey that had brought me here. The heartbreak, the growth, the love. It all felt like pieces of a puzzle that had come together to create something beautiful. Slowly, I began to write, pouring my thoughts and memories onto paper. The process was cathartic, and as the pages filled, I realized that this was more than a personal project. It was a tribute to the resilience of the human spirit, to the power of love and forgiveness, and to the strength it takes to move forward. One crisp winter morning, as Emma and I sat by the fire, I handed her the finished manuscript. "It's done," I said, my voice soft. She looked at me, her eyes filled with pride. "I can't wait to read it." As she turned the pages, I felt a sense of closure. My story was no longer just mine. It was a gift to the people I loved and, perhaps, to others who might find comfort in its words. Life, I realized, is a series of chapters. Some are filled with pain, others with joy, but all of them contribute to the story of who we are. And as I looked at Emma, surrounded by the warmth of our home and the love of our family, I knew that this chapter, this life, was the greatest one of all. Years turned into decades, and the richness of life deepened as Emma and I grew older together. Each day brought something to cherish, a shared smile, a new memory, or the quiet companionship of simply being in each other's presence. Grace thrived in Paris, becoming a celebrated artist known for her evocative, abstract pieces that explored themes of identity, resilience, and love. She visited often, bringing stories of her life abroad and filling the house with laughter and light. Her work began to adorn galleries worldwide, and Emma and I made it a point to attend her exhibitions whenever we could, even traveling overseas a few times to support her. Mia and Alex continued to build their lives, raising 2 children of their own, our grandchildren, Thomas and Lily. Watching them grow up was a joy beyond words. Thomas inherited Emma's sharp wit, while Lily had my penchant for storytelling, often sitting by my side and listening intently to tales from my past. One summer evening, as the family gathered for a barbecue in our backyard, Thomas, now a teenager, asked me a question that took me by surprise. "Grandpa," he began, flipping a burger on the grill, How did you and Grandma make it all these years? What's your secret? The question made everyone pause, their attention turning toward me. Emma smiled, her eyes sparkling, and I took a moment to think. Well, I said, leaning back in my chair, it's no secret, really. It's about choosing love every single day. There were hard times, sure, but we faced them together. And forgiveness, real, honest forgiveness, is as important as love itself. Thomas nodded thoughtfully, and I could see the wheels turning in his mind. It was a simple answer, but it carried the weight of a lifetime's worth of lessons. As the years went on, Emma and I began to slow down, embracing the quieter moments of life. We traveled less and spent more time at home, surrounded by the things and people we loved. The manuscript I had written years earlier had been published at Mia's insistence, and to my surprise, it resonated with readers far and wide. Letters poured in from people who found hope and healing in my story, and it was a humbling experience to know that my journey had touched so many lives. One autumn afternoon, as Emma and I sat on the porch watching the leaves fall, she reached for my hand. "Liam," she said softly, her voice tinged with the wisdom of a lifetime. "We've had a good run, haven't we?" I squeezed her hand, my heart full. "The best," I replied. When Emma passed away peacefully in her sleep a few years later, the grief was overwhelming, but so was the gratitude for the life we had shared. She had been my anchor, my partner, my everything, and her loss left a void that could never be filled. But she had also given me a life so full of love and memories that I knew I would carry her with me always. In the years that followed, I found solace in my family. Grace returned to the States to be closer, and Mia and Alex made sure I was never alone for long. My grandchildren became my greatest joy, their laughter and energy a constant reminder of the beauty of life. And through it all, I continued to write, pouring my thoughts and feelings into words. It became my way of staying connected to Emma, to the life we had built, and to the future that lay ahead for the family we had nurtured. On my 85th birthday, surrounded by my children, grandchildren, and even great-grandchildren, I looked around at the faces that had become my legacy. Emma's absence was keenly felt, but her spirit was everywhere, in the smiles, the love, and the laughter that filled the room. "Thank you," I said, my voice breaking slightly, "for being my everything, for giving me a life worth living." Mia, Grace, and the rest of the family raised their glasses in a toast, their eyes shining with love and gratitude. "To you, Dad," Mia said, "and to the life you've given all of us." And in that moment, I knew that Emma was right. We had indeed had a good run. And as I looked at my family, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace, knowing that the story of my life was not just mine, but ours. A tale of love, resilience, and the beautiful chaos of being human. As the years continued to pass, life took on a serene rhythm. My days were filled with small joys, reading on the porch, tending to the garden, and watching the seasons change. The house that Emma and I had shared became a haven of memories, a quiet sanctuary that held the echoes of laughter, love, and the occasional chaos of family gatherings. One spring morning, Grace arrived with an envelope in hand, her face lit up with excitement. She handed it to me as we sat in the living room, her enthusiasm infectious. "Dad," she said, "I submitted your manuscript to a writing competition last year without telling you, and you won." I blinked at her, confused. "Won what?" Grace grinned. "The Lifetime Storytelling Award. They want to honor you at a ceremony in New York next month." I opened the envelope and saw the official letter of congratulations. The idea of traveling to New York and being in the spotlight felt overwhelming, but Grace's insistence and pride in me melted any resistance I had. The ceremony was a grand affair, held in a historic theater filled with writers, artists, and readers. As I stood at the podium, looking out at the crowd, I couldn't help but think of Emma. She had always been my greatest supporter, even when I doubted myself. "This recognition," I began, my voice steady but filled with emotion, "isn't just about my story. It's about the people who shaped it, the ones who loved me, challenged me, and taught me what it means to truly live." The applause that followed was humbling, but what meant more were the personal conversations afterward. People approached me to share how my story had resonated with them, how it had helped them navigate their own challenges. It was a reminder of the interconnectedness of human experience, and I felt profoundly grateful. Back at home, Life carried on with its familiar rhythm, but now there was a sense of contentment that wasn't there before. I had shared my story with the world, and in doing so, I had found a deeper sense of purpose. One evening, as I was organizing old photographs, I came across a picture of Emma and me on our wedding day. Her smile was radiant, her eyes full of hope and love. I sat with the photo for a long time, letting the memories wash over me. "I hope I made you proud," I whispered, feeling a warmth in my heart that told me she was still with me, in her own way. In the years that followed, my relationship with Linda deepened. She had been a source of quiet strength and companionship, and though our bond was different from what I had with Emma, it was meaningful in its own right. We spent our days exploring new places, hosting dinners for the family, and supporting each other through the inevitable ups and downs of life. Eventually, the time came when my body began to slow, and I knew my time was nearing its end. It wasn't a moment of fear but of acceptance. I had lived a life full of love, mistakes, forgiveness, and growth. I had found joy, endured heartbreak, and left a legacy in the form of my family and my words. On a quiet autumn evening, surrounded by my family, I closed my eyes for the last time, a sense of peace washing over me. The love of my life, Emma, was waiting for me in the memories of our shared past, and I felt her presence guiding me home. Years later, Grace, now a celebrated artist, hosted an exhibit titled The Tapestry of Love. Among her works was a piece dedicated to me, a swirling, vibrant canvas that captured the essence of my journey. Beside it, a small plaque read, "This is for my father, Liam, a man who taught me that life is not about avoiding pain but embracing it, learning from it, and finding beauty in the resilience of the human spirit." And so, my story lived on, not just in words, but in the lives I had touched and the legacy of love that would continue to ripple through generations. Grace's art exhibit became a gathering point for our family and friends, a testament to the life and lessons we had shared. As people walked through the gallery, memories intertwined with the vibrant pieces she had created. Each painting told a part of my story, but it was also a reflection of how our lives had impacted one another. One painting, titled Threads of Forgiveness, depicted a mosaic of faces and moments, some joyous, others painful. It represented the people who had shaped me: Emma, Nora, Linda, and even Sienna. The acknowledgement of Sienna surprised many who knew our history, but Grace understood something profound. Life's tapestry includes every thread, even the ones frayed by betrayal and loss. Linda attended the exhibit, standing quietly by Grace's side. They had formed a bond that transcended the circumstances of how Linda had entered my life. She smiled warmly as she spoke to visitors who asked about her connection to the art, sharing stories about the man she had come to love and the lessons we had learned together. When the exhibit ended, Linda and Grace walked home together, reflecting on the legacy I had left behind. Grace shared stories of her childhood, while Linda spoke of the life we had built together after so much heartbreak. They laughed and cried, their connection strengthened by the man who had brought them together. Nora, now a mother herself, often visited the exhibit with her children. She pointed out the paintings that held special meaning, teaching her little ones about resilience, forgiveness, and the power of love. She told them about their grandfather, a man who had faced life's storms with courage and found beauty in its imperfections. Grandpa Liam believed in second chances, she told them one day. He showed us that no matter how broken we feel, we can always find a way to heal and move forward. Her children listened with wide eyes, their innocent curiosity sparking questions that Nora answered with a patient smile. They would grow up carrying the wisdom of their grandfather, shaping their own lives with the values he had instilled. The years continued to pass, but my presence remained alive in the stories they shared and the love they carried. Linda eventually moved to be closer to Grace and her growing family, finding solace in the shared moments and memories. She often visited my resting place, bringing flowers and sitting in quiet reflection. Grace painted a final piece, titled Eternal Ties, which depicted a tree with deep roots and branches stretching toward the sky. At its base were symbols of the people who had shaped her life, and at its heart was a single, glowing light, a tribute to the legacy of love and resilience I had left behind. The painting hung in her home, a daily reminder of the life we had all built together. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, filled with moments of laughter, sorrow, forgiveness, and growth. In the end, my story became more than just my own. It wove into the lives of those I loved, a testament to the enduring strength of the human spirit and the power of love to transcend even the deepest wounds. My legacy was not in the things I left behind but in the hearts of those who carried it forward. And so, life continued. A tapestry of joy and sorrow, bound together by the unbreakable threads of love. As the years unfolded, the lives I had touched continued to grow and flourish, each carrying forward the lessons we had shared. Grace's art became a beacon of hope and resilience, Linda's strength an anchor for our family, and Nora's wisdom a guiding light for the next generation. Nora's children grew up with stories of their grandfather, of his kindness, his flaws, and his unwavering determination to find beauty in life's chaos. They often visited Grace's gallery, marveling at the art that bore the weight of a lifetime's worth of experiences. Nora would smile, knowing they were absorbing the values I had worked so hard to impart. Linda, my steadfast partner, found peace in the life we had built together. She spent her golden years surrounded by love, never forgetting the man who had helped her rediscover herself after her greatest loss. On quiet evenings, she would sit on the porch, her hand resting on a worn photo of us, her heart filled with gratitude for the life we had shared. Grace's career as an artist blossomed, her work traveling far and wide. Each piece she created bore a part of our shared journey, a tribute to the strength of family and the power of forgiveness. She became known not just as an artist but as a storyteller, weaving tales of love, loss, and redemption into her vibrant canvases. The final chapter of my legacy came on a warm summer afternoon, years after I had gone. Grace had organized a family gathering at her home, inviting everyone who had been part of my life. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, they gathered around a large tree in her backyard, a tree planted in my memory. Beneath its branches, they shared stories, laughter, and tears. Linda, her voice steady despite the emotion in her eyes, recounted the moment she first realized I had mended her heart. Nora spoke of the lessons I had taught her about resilience, and Grace, with her artist's soul, painted vivid pictures of my enduring presence in their lives. As the evening wore on, Grace unveiled her final painting, The Tree of Life. It depicted the very tree under which they now sat, its branches reaching upward, its roots entwined with symbols of love, strength, and forgiveness. At its center was a glowing light, a tribute to the man who had, in his own imperfect way, shown them how to carry on. The gathering ended with a toast to the future, a future shaped by the lessons of the past and the love that bound them all. As they raised their glasses, I felt, in some intangible way, that I was still with them, a part of every smile, every tear, and every moment of joy. My story had come full circle. It wasn't a tale of perfection but one of resilience, redemption, and enduring love. In the lives of those I loved, I found my final resting place, a place where my memory would live on, not as a shadow of the past but as a guiding light for the future. And so, I rested, not in sadness but in peace, knowing that the seeds I had planted had grown into a legacy of love, strength, and hope. Thanks for watching this story of heartbreak and healing. Do you think true happiness can be found after betrayal? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more heartfelt stories.